Stuart, can you sum up how important this game is, bearing in mind the month that Motherwell have ahead of them?
It's a big game, Peter. It really is. Of course it is. I think I found myself saying that the last time we went up to Dingwall a number of weeks ago, and we let ourselves down. That for me was ultimately the worst performance and the worst result I felt in my tenure and my time at the football club. So I suppose these games start to feel a little bit bigger when you're starting to run down games in a season, etc. But you know, I think you can get caught up too much in the occasion and the event. I think for us, we really have to specify and simplify our performances, which I think of late have been pretty good. I would like to see us obviously converting some of those points into three and into a victory. But no, I think we find ourselves in a decent spot. I think we find ourselves feeling good. We've obviously been able to bring one or two players in to give us that little bit of strength and give us one or two more options. But from the players' point of view, I don't really want to be focused too much on the occasion and focus too much on, you know, two teams that are sitting at the bottom end of the table at this minute in time. I want us to start to think about how we convert those performances into more points. I genuinely believe I could make a real case for us sitting here in our last 3 league games with 9 points. I really do. You know, Hibernian, St Johnstone and Kilmarnock here at home on Saturday. I think that there's so many ways I can make cases for that. But I always say to go on those winning runs and to start picking up points, I don't ever think you just go from sort of zero to blowing teams out the water. But what I feel as if we're doing is we're starting to bridge a gap in those performances that would suggest that we could win games.
Last season, at round about the same point in the month, Kevin Van Veen, from there to the end of the season, hit 17 goals. Do you think you've got enough goals in your team to make sure you don't hit any dip? Have you got enough goals that will keep you away from what we all speculate on is who's going to be the bottom two?
Yeah, I think again, I probably always try and put a bit of logic on this. I sat and fielded the exact same questions when Kevin left here at the start of the season, and you know, everyone was wondering what do Motherwell do now. It's almost as if we stop and we don't exist and nothing else happens, and essentially we won't score any goals, and we just have to try and make sure we keep them out the other end. At times, Peter, it's been the opposite. At times we could have been better and more resilient and having better levels of concentration at the back end of the pitch, but we've been scoring goals. You know, we've been pitching in throughout. Recently Theo Bair's the guy that captures the headlines, and rightfully so, with his composure, his goals, his performances, but he's well aided and he's well assisted by some of the players that are behind him. Now we score a goal against St Johnstone, we score 2 goals against Hibs, and we scored 1 against Kilmarnock. I do believe that could have been more, so you're always striving for perfection, you're always striving to score more goals, but probably in answer to your question, I think most people felt that we'd be sitting here as the lowest goal scorers in the top flight, and we're anything but that.
Has he exceeded your expectations, or is it exactly what you thought you were going to get from him? He's just stepping up to the plate.
Yeah, again, I never ever like to sit here and try and make out I'm the smartest guy in the room, because I'm absolutely not, because you're standing in front of me, Peter. But I genuinely think I believe in a coaching process. I think so many times, every club I've worked at and every job I've had as a coach and a manager, I've evolved into someone that has to see the light and see the simple traits in somebody, that has to try and get the best out of them. I've never been handed the perfect footballer at any point. You know, I think I've heard Pep's comments before that this is an easier job than most, because you know, when you go and sign Haaland as a striker, then this guy bangs the ball in the back of the net, he scores goals. He was already that before he went to Man City, and they try and improve him. But you look at you know, the players that we have access to and the people that we bring in, it's no disrespect to them, but that's the bit that excites me. That's the bit that really that really gets me going in the morning, because I want to work with players. I want to go through that coaching process. I want to work with them individually through analysis. I want to work with them on the pitch. I want to try and get into I want to try and get inside their head at times. I want to try and sort of push buttons and see if we can help them with their confidence. Now, you use Theo Bair as an example. He is that kind of ball of plasticine, if you like, for me. When you look at his physical traits and you look at the type of person he is, he wants to learn, he wants to pick up an understanding of how to play the position. He wants to learn what his role is within the team. He doesn't come here with any ego whatsoever. I think if you've got an ego sometimes, and it becomes really hard to teach you and help you. So from that ball of plasticine, you almost get to shape him into what you think he can become. And as I say, between myself and the staff at the football club, that's the most exciting. But I've spoke about so many players that I've worked with through time, and certain players, I think probably the one that always jumps off the page when you look at, we're playing against Ross County tomorrow, was like, say, Ross Stewart. Ross Stewart wasn't a £10 million striker when he walked through the doors for £20,000 at Ross County. He became that through time, but he became that because he had a lot of similar traits to Big Theo, as in being that humble person, being that guy that wanted to get the absolute best out of his career, but he had the physical traits to get him to where he was. So I think a lot of people sit in front of cameras and sit in press conferences and tell you that we coach and we make players better and we do X, Y and Z. I believe that's my bag. I believe that's the coaching staff here in this football club's bag, is to take that kind of rough diamond and polish them up and try and make them into, or help facilitate them into something better. Because I need to stress that point as well. I've never made anybody a better player in my life. All I do is facilitate and point them in the right direction. I think there's so many egomaniacs out there that tell you that they've created all kinds of players. That's not my thing. That's not how I put it. But just going back to the question, I know I'm going on a wee bit here, but the idea of bringing Theo Bair in here in day one was pretty exciting for me, because I thought that there was so far to go, and we've got to go through a process as well. This kind of GBE process to get them into your group and into the football club. And it's fair to say that there's one or two people that may have been involved in that process that I spoke to since, that kind of had a wee smirk in their face and a little bit of laughing, and people that I respect in the game that said, I think you could be onto something there. I think you could be onto a bit of a gem that maybe a lot of people don't see. So fair credit to Theo. He's in a good place just now, but the big task for him now is to continue that and just kick on and make sure that he can increase his numbers between now and the end of the season, and that he can lead the line for us on a weekly basis, and be the handful that he has been for a decent amount of time now.
You mentioned that last game against Ross County. Just how different a prospect are they now, given the changes they've gone through over the past month or so?
It's different, isn't it? It's different. I watched them last week against Livingston. They played with a back four. I've watched the game in detail from the weekend, where I actually thought in moments, I listened to Derek speaking after the game, and he said that he thought they created a lot of chances and that they had quite a bit of control in the game. They absolutely did. From what I've seen, terrific result for St Johnstone, but from what I've seen, it's, I think a lot of people look at that and say what a terrible result, but I don't think it was a terrible performance from Ross County from what I've seen. But there's a bit of unpredictability in it, because obviously the manager's been in for a period of time now, but there's been a lot of turnover of players. Some guys that I know, some players that I've watched a lot of wearing a Ross County jersey, but some that have come in most recently, but also within different systems. So there is a bit of unpredictability about it, but we just have to make sure, as we always do, that we're kind of braced for all aspects. But I think you'll see with us over the last few weeks and the games that we've played, that trying to get to where we were last season, if I'm being honest with you, just in that consistency of team selection, that consistency of how we play. And I think if we get that bit right, we hope and we believe sometimes that can take out the external factors, which might be a change of shape for Ross County or a change of personnel. If we get our bit right, we give ourselves a chance. And what we'd done through a bad run at times was not that we weren't getting it right, it was just at times the lack of concentration, the lack of decision making in big moments. But then again, I feel we've lost two poor goals in the last two games as well. So we still have got loads to work on, and we've got still got so much more to improve on. But the signs are better for me. The signs are good, even when I felt sort of upbeat and positive in a bad run with some of the performances that we had in there that didn't result in any points. I feel as if we start to be looking like a team that can take control of games and that can carry a threat. But we have to go and try and dig in and see if we can find a wee bit of that resolve that we had at the tail end of games that brought us back in to get points when we were maybe two goals down in several games. We get back into the game. We need a wee bit more of that resolve, possibly in the last sort of 15 minutes or so, and I'm hoping with the fresh faces and the bodies we've been able to bring in that can give us that kind of fresh impetus sometimes when you get into the last 20-15 minutes or so of the game.
And actually, now the transfer window is out the way, do you get the chance maybe to look at the players who are out of contract in the summer and maybe kind of start that process of building for next season as well? Because there's a lot of players that seem to be out of contract. There's a lot of maybe uncertainty above you with the board and the chief exec and your own contract as well. Is that a situation you can start to address?
That process has started for months. I don't know, and again, I try not to read too much, and I try not to look at too much. But you see so many stories flying about. Geez, that transfer window there. Honest to goodness, the things and the information that comes across, and the bits that are said, some of which is accurate and some of which is not, I have to say. But it just amazes me at times where some of these stories are made up from, and where people get a lot of their information. But the one thing I'll say is now we all start to look at it and say, let's go and try and sign players in new contracts, let's go and extend contracts, etc. That process has been happening for months. That's been happening for a long time. And again, it's like the transfer window. Sometimes you get in the players you want, and you want to bring in that you think are going to help you and might be your first pick, second, third, whatever that is. But it's the same way contract negotiation, trying to re-sign players. Then sometimes you're successful quickly in that process, sometimes you're successful through a long-term process, sometimes you're not successful at all. And again, I'll reference it with this club. I think again we seem to be one of the clubs that people have a big voice about losing players and players going elsewhere. You give me a name of a player that's either went for compensation, or a player that's went for a fee, or some guys that have went for nothing at the end of their contract here. In my time, you give me a name of a player, anyone you want, and I'll be able to tell you that I tried extremely hard to keep it at football clubs. So sometimes that's out with our hands. Sometimes we don't have the choice in whether that happens. We can only make our best play at it. We can only throw at it financially what we have, which I think everybody will acknowledge in this league is very much at the lowest end. But we do our best by it. And we try to work off relationships, and we try to work off a process where hopefully people will see that through this period of time a lot of players have started to improve and evolve as players on the pitch. And that's always our selling point, maybe to further their career, maybe to better their career. Sometimes that's better staying here for another season, another 30-40 games before you move on to something. But the one thing we all know in football is that's not my choice. That's down to players, that's down to agents and where they see their future. So again, go back to your question, that process has been ongoing for months, and I'll argue with anybody on that front that thinks I sit downstairs with my feet up and don't engage in those conversations.
Has that been the challenge almost, as well as coaching this squad and ensuring that they maintain their high levels? You do have that added aspect of making sure that everything is ticking along in the background and working with what you've got in terms of budgets and whatnot, and keeping scores together. Yeah, again,
I need to go to the historical aspect of this. If you look at my past, my history in terms of, I'm absolutely, and again I'll argue with anybody, in the two managerial jobs that I've had, I'm a guy that has had a remit of cutting costs and ensuring that things are really run tightly. And I think that to do that, you always have to have a plan moving forward. Certainly in my time at Ross County, there was huge cuts and a major cull essentially on kind of what your budget was and what you could do. Simple things, even like your overnight travels and all these different things that can sometimes have an impact. I've had all of that. Similar situation coming in here, whereby, and again, I'm not pleading poverty. It's just that this is the way the football club must run. This is the way it must run in order for it to be its best version. But to do that, you have to have a plan of where you're going to go. You can't just start cutting things and trying to reduce budgets and all the rest of it, reduce costs, bringing in money for compensations and player sales, Kevin Van Veen's and all this type of thing. You can't have all of that without having some sort of plan moving forward. So it is a thing that I've always prided myself on, not just today, because I used to talk about never wanting a job that just relies on you winning one game of football, because the bit that probably is my passion is what I'm saying earlier on to Peter in the sense of your Theo Bairs. It's that long-term plan of, does that player become a sellable asset at the football club? Does he come in here where nobody essentially is jumping through hoops to try and bring him into the football club, but you pride yourself on that period of time you get to work with them and hopefully try and help them become a top player in their position. That's all a long-term plan for me. But again, if you listen to conversations that I have and the connection I have with the academy here and aspects like that, then that's massive to me, and these are all parts of that long-term plan.
How's the squad look in terms of injuries?
They look much the same. We got John Obika back on the grass yesterday. Obviously you guys seen that a couple of injuries, especially Dan Casey longer term. I think his last game was against Ross County, so he was back in the squad at the weekend and getting stronger by the day. Shane Blaney in there as well. So no, as it stands just now, I don't have an injury. I think that might be the first time I've been able to tell you that. Apart from Callum Slattery, of course, who, by the way, is he's due for surgery this week, but he's looking good and he's looking as if he's in a decent place, and we're hopeful with that surgery that he's right into the recovery process.